For all things outdoors, listen to the father of two, the Jesus-loving TV show hosting Harry, true blood American redneck, Ben Cole.
And listen to the outdoor filming, chef cooking, chocolate milk drinking, John Weismuller. And we are
Rooted Podcast. Have you ever wanted some high-end products out in the woods? Look no further than our friends at R.W. Coolidge. They make duck straps, they make bags, they make gun cases. Whether you want canvas or leather, they got you covered. So for this hunting season, check out R.W. Coolidge for all of your needs. Well, I'm sorry if that busted your eardrums, but we're back for another episode about duck hunting, and I'm going to fire some questions at Ben. Ben, you ready, man?
Yes, sir. Brother, I'm always ready to talk about the ducks.
Let's do it, man. So, again, we're going to kind of stay on topic of, the beginning duck hunter, someone who's just wanting to start or someone who's just a couple years in, and let's dive right into it. So, all right, we kind of talked about this on the last episode with blinds. I want to ask you about how to brush in a blind, like what's important, what are you looking for? Because, a lot of times as a deer hunter or a turkey hunter, that thing's on, ground level where this duck is obviously flying in the sky. So what's different about brushing in a duck blind?
Number one, you have to hide from their eyeballs because they're looking at you from an aerial view and they're swinging above you and then swinging around to in front of you. They're on all sides of you, behind you. So they're seeing a full 360 of where you are. Noted. Make sure that you're brushing with natural vegetation or something that mimics the natural vegetation where you are. So for example, if you're in a bunch of willows, brush with willows. So one thing I like to do, and it depends too, man. Sometimes you don't even need a blind. If you're in the timber, you typically don't use a blind, typically. But now sometimes you can. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's against the rules or anything like that. I'm just saying, a lot of times in the timber, you get in there, you stand by a tree, you kill your ducks, you leave. So that's technically your blind. The tree is your blind because you're hugged up to that tree. You're essentially a tree hugger. Is what you are at that point. Moving forward, you have a pit blind. Okay, so a pit blind has two flaps sometimes that come up like this that kind of set and make the blind. So the rest of the blind is under the ground, right? So the water comes right up. The water's like eye level when you are sitting in the blind. So what you want to do is brush this, the A-frame part of it, to match whatever. So if it's a rice field, you want to brush it with rice stubble or something that looks very, very similar to the rice stubble, which is what is right there. I mean, you're trying to blend in with what is right there in your surroundings. So like I said, when you're in a pit, you have not much to brush because majority of the blind is below the ground. So you brush that, but you want to brush it so thick that a duck cannot see in and see you. That's the whole point. I mean, that is the whole point, man. And there's a ton of different pits out there. Some of them have roll tops. Some of them have, just shooting windows. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways to have a pit. So, but essentially what you're trying to do is hide from the 360 view of that bird. So having a roof of any sort is very helpful when you're building your duck blinds. And if it goes to raining, you got somewhere to step under so you don't get soaked. And, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's like, man, you're not a duck hunter if you ain't getting rain down your back. Well, that's all good, but
good for you.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. But I like having a roof if I can, and it cuts your head.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not seeing in from when they're right above you, hovering, looking. They're not seeing in because they can't see in. That's the point. So you also have your blinds that you make out of wood, right? So the way I brush those is, man, I start with a base layer of dense, like oak limbs, for example. I'll start with those, or whatever limbs that are readily available around. Start with those, or big cedars. Big cedars work phenomenal because they cover a whole lot of space, and a cedar pretty much blends in everywhere because there's always a random cedar tree. They're always just randomly placed it doesn't matter where you are, you're going to find a
Mhm.
cedar tree of some capacity. So cedar trees work really good. But what I do is I put a base layer down first, and then I start packing in that base layer. So I'll take like a cedar limb that's covered in green, and I pack that in between all the other limbs that are already in there. That's kind of the base layer holding everything to the blind. So that base layer is going to have everything held to the blind because you're going to have it attached somehow or another. So after you get that attached, you start stuffing. Start stuffing all you can in between until there is nothing visible left. Like I want you to be able to have to pretty much cut a hole out so you can go through it. That's how I want my blinds brushed, is just so thick that it just simply looks like a big old heap of brush.
Well, and I tell you, I can definitely vouch for you on that. Story time here. There was a time Ben, basically by himself, had a old pontoon boat, basically a pontoon frame, really, I guess is what it was, and then just built a duck blind. So they had a pontoon boat duck blind, and so he tells me and that we're gonna brush it in. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I brushed in blinds before. Whatever. Yeah, no, nothing like this, boy. I mean, by golly, we had so many trees on that thing, and when it's happening, it's like, dude, what is? I mean, we're sitting here painting and brushing and nailing this thing, screwing it in, all this other jazz, and then you're like, what? This guy's crazy, man. This dude's got. I mean, this thing is ridiculous. And then you put it in the water and up against something, and you're like, oh, okay, I see now. Like, this is why we did all this, and we ended up shooting a decent amount of ducks out of that blind. But
Yeah,
I mean, but that's why you go that extra mile, because I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want the duck to see you, so that's why you do all that work. But yeah, old Ben definitely takes his blind brushing to the next level.
Hey, look, man, I'm out there to put ducks in the freezer and in our bellies, not to watch them fly by and
I
flare off
heard that.
us. That's right.
Hey, I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
It'll not be from a lack of trying. That's for
That's
certain.
exactly right. I'll shoot a whole case of shells if I got to.
That's right. So, all right, man. Now, whenever we're sitting here talking about, like, on the last episode, we talked about all the basic necessities to have, and we're talking about the blind. Now, let's talk about the actual land that we're hunting. Like, if a dude was to go on, or a woman, whoever was to go on to some public land, or whatever, and be like, I'm trying to find a duck. What the heck is a person looking for other than water? I mean, do you just start with water and go from there? Like, what are you looking for to find ducks?
Well, typically, more of your water hunting is going to be in our region: Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Illinois, Missouri, Louisiana. All that stuff is more water
Okay.
here as far as the puddlers go. When you get more out west, you're actually hunting a lot of dry fields. I have killed so many mallards sitting in a dry field with just some decoys out, a layout blind,
Like a
and
cornfield or wheat
yeah,
or
yeah,
something?
just a harvested cornfield, that the combine had just finished picking.
Hmm.
And man, it would just be a tornado of mallards right there in that dry field. And the difference is they're not going to do that. I mean, I'm not saying they're not. Majority of the time in our region, they're going to hit the water holes first, and then they'll walk out to the, dry ground and eat or whatever. But majority of the time, those birds are going to be sitting in the water where we are, because water is associated with food here. So you have all these rice fields that are flooded, cornfields that have been harvested and flooded, and even bean fields. You can use bean fields. You can use whatever you want. Let's just think about it. You can plant what you want for the ducks, or any kind of agriculture practices that you're already doing, commercial commodities.
Okay.
I mean, so it and see, that's another thing. So when you go into the timber, they're eating acorns and moist soil. So there's a lot of different things that are variables depending on where exactly you're hunting. So if I was telling a new person where to go look, I would say go to a WMA that allows you to drive through it. Some of them do not. So make sure you read the signs, make sure you double check everything before you do it, because they will write you a ticket for doing that if you're not allowed to do that without a permit. But what I would do, I would spend a lot of time in my truck with a pair of binoculars or a spotting scope looking. Even if you got to just go to the next road over, if it's elevated enough, heck, you can see everything you need to see from that. And you're not in a WMA, or you're not. I mean, man, I even go knock on landowners' doors. I don't care. All they can do is tell me no, get the heck out of here. You know, I mean, there's no harm in it. You know, you can even offer them some cash. It's like, hey, is this your field over here? All right, cool. Can I lease it for the day tomorrow? You know, or whatever, and then go from there. But the biggest thing is to look for the feeds. And one thing to note on the feeds is a snow goose feed is not always promising. Sometimes they will be there when you're looking at them. They leave overnight and they're 3 fields down, or they're completely in the next county. A snow goose is the most unpredictable bird there is on the face of this earth, because there's so many of them. When they congregate in the fields in thousands, hundreds of thousands, they will mow through a field and completely wipe it out in one afternoon.
Man.
And then they're gone. Or they may sit there for 2 days or 3 days or whatever, and then they're just gone. So you just never know where those kind of geese are going to end up. I mean, you may be on the X one day and you may do like we did 3 years ago. And I mean, we shot 250 birds one morning. It was outstanding. It was that day you had COVID and couldn't come.
Imagine that, huh?
Yeah. I was like, dude, you would get sick. I mean, this would be that good of a hunt, and you were sick. I was like, man, what are the odds of that?
Yeah. Because the one, snow goose hunt I have been on, we shot like, I don't know, 5 or so birds that day. Yeah. And then, maybe, And
then like, I'm sending you videos.
As a group, and it's like.
I'm sending you videos from under a tornado of snow geese.
Crazy.
You're like, dude, you suck. Stop sending me videos.
I'm like, man, get out of here with that crap. But we, man, I definitely got to go back soon. That's for sure. Yeah.
We're going to do it again this February. We may do it several times in February. So we'll get you back out there and do that again.
Yeah, let's roll.
Man, seriously, though, if you're really looking, don't be embarrassed to go talk to a warden either. They're generally pretty dang nice, and they're going to help you out, especially if you don't know and you make the effort to go and talk to them. It's like, hey, man, look, I don't know what I'm doing. That's their job. Yeah, and just a lot of them are really nice dudes. I've met so many of our law officers in the state of Tennessee, and, man, they are some outstanding people to talk to. I mean, they're not out to get you. They're out to help you more than anything. It's like – I mean, they're just really easy to work with if you just approach them in the beginning. Instead of having to ask for forgiveness, just go talk to them. It's a lot easier to figure out what you need. And, dude, guess what? They're your best resource because they're on the water every day. Every day.
Yeah,
they're out there every single day. They know where those ducks are living. They know where those geese are hanging out. They know because they're there every day. And, a lot of them are really kind, and they'll even, some of them, man, I mean, shoot, they may even invite you on a hunt with them. You never know. Just make sure your P's and Q's are crossed. Don't shoot before the shooting line.
Yeah, buddy. If you're going to hunt with them, you better. I wouldn't pull the trigger till he did.
Yeah, then I'll go after him.
That's for certain.
That's right, buddy. You do it, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Hit it. You kill that duck.
Good job, pal.
But seriously though, that is going to be your best resource, and those guys really are a bunch of nice guys. Every bunch has a bad apple in it, but I would say 99% of the game wardens I've dealt with in the state are phenomenal people. They really are.
I'm right there with you. I mean, I live in a place with the one of the regional offices is actually here, so there's I live right next to a WMA. Like, I see those people all the time. And, I mean, nothing but great interactions with the actual officers themselves. They're always willing to help and answer questions, whatever you need. So that's definitely a good tip. I mean, just number one, just walk out there in glass, and then just ask the local wildlife agency.
Yeah, and now some WMAs will not allow you to drive a vehicle, but you can ride a bicycle or you can hoof it
Right.
and walk. So what I used to do when I was younger, hunting the public land in Alabama that wasn't like the Tennessee River, I would literally get on my little Huffy and I would go and ride for hours with my binoculars and I would just look and look. Even in the summer, man, I would go down there on my bicycle, and sometimes during the summer they let you drive through. So I would drive through and figure out, okay, this is the field I want to go and look at first next season. So I'd already kind of have a game plan of what I wanted depending on the water level, because the water level is everything, right? If you can't get your boat all the way back to that because the water's too shallow, well, then you're limited to where you can actually hunt. So it's really good to go ahead and have 5 or 6 spots planned out in your mind of, okay, this is too shallow. I need to go here, 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 here. Or that one's taken, somebody's there, let's back up to here. Whatever. You always have to have a spot C, D, and F when you're duck hunting. So, I mean, you just have to have a lot of extra backup plans, or you're going to end up going to the boat ramp aggravated. It's like, well, I got up at 2:00 in the morning for nothing. Done it before.
Well, and how much does something like an Onyx help people now? Maybe you don't have to. Maybe you could do at least a lot of the pre-scouting and stuff. On the phone before actually going there. I mean, nothing beats going there and seeing the ducks, but it may eliminate some unnecessary walking or driving around.
Well, yeah, I mean, Onyx is good to show you property lines for sure, but when it comes to actually figuring out duck holes, man, you can see some of them. Like if you're looking for timber, timber holes, you can see some of them, but there's also some that are like a simple blowdown that is just enough for birds to pile in, and buddy, they will hammer in, but you can't see that on the map. And things change year to year on that ground. So one year it may be one way and the next year is totally different. So, and they rotate crops all the time too. So you really need to go and lay your eyes on it physically to see if that's exactly what your game plan needs to be for the next year.
That makes sense. Yeah, I could see that. Nothing beats looking at it.
Yeah, but I will say, I mean, those kind of applications are very handy, especially to know property lines. Because I mean, good night. Sure. You don't want to walk on somebody else's land. That wouldn't be nice.
Yeah, no.
And that's not good for anybody. That would not be right? Good. No, not good for anybody. Not at all.
So, we're talking about you definitely grew up in the South, hunting ducks in the South. And, obviously we've been fortunate enough. We've hunted waterfowl, in West, and you've been up to Canada, all that fun jazz. But talking more hunting in the South here, something that I've kind of noticed, and, I know this seems very, kind of like a duh moment. I mean, this seems very obvious, but something I've noticed, I want to ask you about, like the weather happening in states above you, especially if you're hunting, Louisiana and Alabama, Georgia, like the whatever weather or cold fronts happening above you can really affect your hunting. Like, not just, like for deer hunting, if, usually if a cold front comes, up in Kentucky, it's not going to affect my spot here in East Tennessee. Like, the front has to be here for it to affect my deer hunting. Where ducks, I feel like if you got a high pressure system up north, you could start seeing some ducks down here. I mean, is that right or not?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, because those ducks are migrating, so they're coming from Canada and headed to Mexico, and along the way they're pushed by these cold fronts. So you'll have some leaving, and it really depends on when the food runs out and how much ice is on the water. So the more ice we have up north, the more snow we have up north, the more cold days we have up north, the more ducks we get down here throughout the season, which is what we want, because obviously we're not hunting from Canada to here. So we're pretty much just hunting here and maybe to the west a few hours. So we really need to watch those weather systems. And if the ducks are getting stale and you can see a system coming, go back and hunt in front of that system, because I'm telling you, new ducks will be showing up in front of it. They usually ride that down. That's usually how that goes, especially, like I said, especially when there's a hard freeze coming up north. When we get a hard freeze coming up north, the birds are on their way here. And that's what we want.
Right.
We need a hard freeze this year. I'm just going to go ahead and ask the good Lord, Lord, please send us a hard freeze up north so we can kill a bunch of ducks. Amen.
That's right.
Need to eat some duck jerky.
Heck yeah, dude. Duck's one of those things that, I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier, but man, duck's quite tasty if you do it right.
Sure
like anything
is.
else, but
I love
good stuff.
Love it.
So now let's talk about this, right? So the ducks obviously coming from the north, coming down. Now to get to us, they've already had to probably outslick a few more rednecks by the time they see you, right? Genuine, in general. So what do you think that kind of the South has to maybe do a little something different with the decoy spread, maybe call a little different, whether that's more aggressive, less aggressive, whatever? I mean, do we have to do stuff a little different to finish those ducks?
Yeah, absolutely. So early season, not so much, but later on, as the season progressive, those birds have seen every decoy spread known to man, from Canada to Arkansas. So they've seen it all. So what we have to do, more so than anything else, the most important thing, even over a decoy spread, is being where the ducks want to be. You can call out them all day. You can have the most elaborate decoy spread out there. If it's not where they want to be, you're not going to land majority of them. You're going to get ones and twos every now and then, but you want to be on the X. That's where you want to be. Is the X is defined as where those ducks are going anyway. So if you can figure out what that X is, then you got it. You're there. That's what you need. That is the piece of the puzzle that is the most crucial, is knowing where that X is. And that all ties into scouting and spending a lot of time on the water, in your truck, glassing, doing all those things, because that will tell you, okay, 2 days ago, these birds were here. Now they're here. Now they're there. Okay, cool. So now we have a plan so we can go hunt one field one morning, one field the next, or the timber the next morning, because you know what they've been doing for this past week, and you know where their new X is. So you constantly have to search for that new X.
Gotcha. So now, obviously, like, scouting for ducks is going to be way different, like as far as scouting for deer, because like deer, you watch that same deer all summer, maybe even for years, whatever. The ducks, it kind of seems like it's more in season scouting, or like over the years you're like, well, last year whenever the ducks ran down, they came through here, so we'll just hunt here again, kind of thing. I mean, it kind of seems to be the way that is.
It is. So what I've done is I have a book that I keep a record of every year, all the ducks, and I actually been slacking on that the past couple of years, but I write down all the ducks that I've killed, where, the weather conditions, the date, and even the decoy spread. And that way I can look back and say, oh, okay, so last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it's been consecutively this same thing every time on this date. So I already know, okay, go check that spot first. So it is a lot of, in the moment scouting, but it's also a lot of previous knowledge and years of hunting a specific region or area. It's like hunting the Lake Guntersville area. I mean, you can pretty much bet that on a certain wind, those ducks are going to be sitting in a certain spot. And I ain't going to say nothing else other than that, because, can't be giving away all my secrets. But I can pretty much tell you, if we got a hard north wind, I know where I'm going. I can already tell you that.
Yeah, right.
Because there may not be anything.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Hey, there may not be anything there, but there's also a real good chance that there is. That's just kind of what history's told me over the past 25 years. And then And too, man, I've had a lot of people over the years, they've really shared a lot of knowledge with me. And, this isn't all just me. This is, a collaboration of learning from others and what they're willing to share too, and what they're willing to do. I mean, that's
Sure.
what I'm appreciative for.
Well, and most other hunters, if there's someone who's wanting to learn and actually has a drive for it and a passion, I would like to believe like 99% of hunters would be like, hey, I was there at one point. Let me help you out. Let me kind of mitigate some of these learning curves. That way you don't have to go through that. Let me just help you here. So I'm right there with you, man. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I do too, and I wish duck hunting was like that. I mean, I know there's some really good people that like getting, other people involved, but then there's the other group of people that are like, well, then they'll know my spots. Then they'll go back to my
Yeah,
spots.
exactly.
Well, technically, they're not anybody's spots. They're the TVA. They're public spots. So that means anybody can go there at any time. Doesn't matter. It's not your spot. You don't have the deed
Yeah.
to it. I mean, anybody can go there.
Heard that.
So I will say there are two different sides to that coin, but just don't be that guy. Be that guy that's willing to help and just get up earlier. And if somebody shows up to your spot, just hunt with them. I mean, you don't have to fight somebody over a freaking duck. It's just a duck, man. It's a duck. That's it. At the end of the day, it's just a duck.
At the end of the day, it's just a duck.
Yeah, it is.
Not the end of the world.
Not at all.
So, there's this thing in duck hunting, okay, that I've noticed as an outsider kind of looking in, where there are, I guess you would call them mallard purists.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, all they do is shoot greenheads and that's it. I mean, so, well, I guess what I'm going to ask is just, is that a common thing in the duck hunting world, or is that just get so oversaid and overdone that like someone like me who's not really in the duck hunting world, just that's like all I ever hear about? So it's like, is that common? I mean, just mallard hunting?
Not really. I mean, I'm not a purist by any means. If it flies, buddy, and it's legal to kill, it dies if it comes in the decoy spread. I'm telling you right now, I will eat a shoveler just as quick as I will eat any other kind of duck, except for them mergansers. I don't mess with them. But the rest of them I'll eat. As long as it's legal to shoot, I'll eat it. And hey, I ain't got nothing wrong with shooting a mallard either. And I think too, everybody gets so caught up in, well, I'm a mallard purist. That's all I kill. Okay, congratulations. Nobody cares. Why don't you just be proud for the next guy and be like, awesome, man, you shot 11 ducks today. That's great. Good job. I mean, I don't care. If somebody wants to be a mallard purist, go ahead. If somebody wants to be a pintail purist, well, you're going to struggle because they're the hardest birds to kill and you can only kill one. Don't feed very many people with one duck. But, if that's the way you want to hunt, do it. I mean, just,
right.
I mean, you don't have to push it on me or anybody else. I mean, just do your thing and enjoy it. That's great. Fantastic. But guess what? There's a place beside the potatoes and gravy for all of God's creation, except for mergansers, as far as the duck world goes.
So he kind of dropped the ball on that one.
Well, I don't know if he dropped the ball, but it just ain't what I want to eat. Nasty things.
I hear you. And there's plenty of other things to eat, so.
Yeah, I mean, why would I want a merganser when I could kill a wood duck or a mallard or a gadwall or, heck, even a shoveler would be easier to eat than a dang hooded merganser.
Yeah, right. Heard that.
Absolutely, man. Sure enough. So, yeah, man, I don't get into the purist thing. I just don't believe in all that.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I mean, because before I even really went duck hunting, I'd heard like whenever someone tells you about a duck, like all you ever think about is just a greenhead mallard. Like that's at least that's what I always thought about. That's like all anyone ever talks about. And then once you kind of really get in the world, you're like, oh, dude, there's like 40 something different waterfowl species, and we're like, okay, this is cool. What the? They're like a hooded what? What the heck's a speckled belly? What? And it's like it's pretty neat, honestly.
Yeah, man, and that's why I wanted to do the Grand Slam. And there's been a lot of people in my life over the years that have Dude, I don't know what just happened. Are we still recording?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I have no idea what just happened there.
Yeah, me neither. You just went away there, Ben.
Well, that was weird. Alrighty. Well, I was just talking away, and I looked over, and my sound was frozen, and I was frozen, and you were frozen. I was like, well, that's not good.
Yeah, you just went black on my end, but well, we'll just keep on going. We'll just edit here.
We can edit that out. Yeah. So anyway, that's why I wanted to do the Waterfowl Grand Slam in North America, was because I want to hunt all 41 species in their respective environments. Right now we're sitting at number 30. So we've killed 30 of 41. We have 11 left, and we will be done with the North American Grand Slam. So yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited every day. I get excited to go back and try again. Most of my birds are going to be more of the harder ones to get to, like the old squaw or long-tailed duck. You got to go to the East Coast for that. I need the the surf scoter and the white-winged scoter. I need the king eider, the harlequin. I need the red-breasted merganser. And I need a cinnamon teal, and then the fulvous and the black-bellied whistling tree duck, and a swan. And I will be done. Yeah, I will be done.
Well, there you go. Well,
so
if anybody
any
wants
listeners
to help
out there,
Ben, hit them up.
I need to kill these ducks. Hit me up. We'll film it. Record a podcast. We'll have you as a guest
absolutely.
and talk about, especially if you're an outfitter and you want to be a guest on this podcast, come on. We'll talk about ducks all day.
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll chat it up.
Yeah.
All right, man. Couple more questions here that old beginner John has for you.
All right.
So there's, in the world of deer hunting, you have this thing, if you're lucky enough, that it's called a sanctuary, where it's like known, like, hey, don't go in there. That's where the deer are safe. That's why they stay here. Like, we are not going in there unless we absolutely have to. In the duck hunting world, there's these things called a refuge, which, to my understanding, it's just a place. I don't know the whole idea behind a refuge, other than all I know is every time I drive by one, there's a bunch of ducks in there and no one's allowed to hunt. So, is that the idea behind a refuge? I mean, is it as simple as that?
It is 100% as simple as that. And you can even create a refuge on your own property. You can set aside X amount of acres and not hunt it. And that becomes a refuge for you. And you start holding birds when nobody else does, because you're not hitting them in there. You're hunting them in the same holes on the other end, but you're letting them rest at the adjacent end of the farm. So let's look at it like this. You have a north side and a south side, right? You're letting them rest in the north side. You're hunting them in the south side. So you're going to end up holding more birds on your farm if you create that kind of refuge within your hunting grounds than folks that hunt every square inch of their farm every day. Now, if you're really close to one of these refuges and you have your private land that's super close, now that can be fine too. But it's still never a bad idea to create your own refuge within your hunting grounds.
Gotcha. So it's just to kind of ensure that, like, the ducks don't get overhunted or overpressured and all that kind of jazz. That's the thought behind one.
Yep, that's the thought behind it. And, you want to have plenty of food in there, plenty of cover, so they can feel safe, secure, and fill their little bellies. Or their crawls. Their crawls first and then their bellies. That's it.
There you go. Now, duck hunting has something really cool that most other, I won't say no other hunting, but most other hunting does not have, which are these little shiny things on their legs called bands.
Yeah.
Now,
there's a few
I
right
know
here.
the premise of a band. Yeah, see there. So like it's basically some state tags it, right, and then the idea is just to track the migration of the bird, right? That's the idea behind a band.
Well, so yeah, it tracks the migration, but it also tracks the age of the bird, where it was killed,
Gotcha.
all that kind of stuff. And it's even more than that. It's really using it to study the full migration and how old birds are living. Like we said, the migration and the age. But now there are radio trackers too that they put on their backs. It's like a little backpack, and man, it tracks everything, the whole works. Like they know where that duck is pretty much all the time. It's pretty cool to actually see that. So you can see that when the reverse migration happens. So there is a thing called a reverse migration, and that's what's so cool about these radio collars and the little backpack radios for the ducks or trackers. You can actually see them reverse migrate up or migrate down, and then they reverse and come back up, and then they go back down again.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool how that happens.
Oh wow!
And it's all tied into the weather. But see, when you start deep diving into that and looking at all the different ways that ducks move, well, then you can start to get an idea too. See, this goes back to the original question. One of the original questions you asked about how to find places to hunt. Go and look at these birds that have been radio tracked, with their little backpacks or neck collars or whatever. You can see where they go. That's where you start. You go and look at that, and it's like, oh, okay. So there's a bunch of birds here, a bunch of birds here, a bunch of birds here. This in particular bird went from here, 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 here. Okay, cool. And then you contact the game wardens in that area, and you talk to them. And then you go in and you kill some ducks after you scout them, of course.
There you go. So, is it I mean, have you ever like seen or shot a duck with one of them little tracker deals on it? Is that common?
No,
or not really.
no,
I guess
it's not common at all. I have never personally seen one with the tracker. I've been on hundreds of hunts where leg bands were killed, but and what you do on that is you call the number that's on the band, and once you call that number, they log it and they tell you how old the bird was, or how old it is, where it was banded, when it was banded, and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty much like the life history of the duck. I mean, as far as like medical goes, I mean, I guess
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, man. I mean,
yeah.
So I had one of the bands on here is a mallard that I shot in Alabama, and it had been banded in, I want to say somewhere up in Canada, and somehow or another, it ended up on that little bitty swamp in Alabama. Sure enough, I about fell out of my chair when I saw that dog running back, and there was a band on that leg. I quit right then. I said, "I'm going to the house. I'm done." That was all I needed for that day.
That's it.
And I was by myself, dude. The craziest thing is on that particular hunt, I was late. It was daylight. I said, you know what? I'm still going to go. I went, threw out just like 5 decoys because I didn't feel like carrying the whole bag down there. Threw out 5 decoys and and I hear, and I thought, okay. So I hit it with a little one of these. And here he comes, locked up, skating back and forth. I was like, oh boy, I'm about to kill him. Boom. Miss. Oh God. Boom. Killed him. Second shot. I was like, man, I just about missed that duck. And scared me to death. I was like, shoot, man, I come down here and I can't even hit one. What the heck? I got him on the second shot, but ended up with a pellet. I don't know if you can see that or not, but ended up with a pellet indention in it from one of the BBs in the shot. So, but yeah, man, that was my very first leg band. Sure was, very first one.
How about that?
Yeah, sure enough, it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So I think that's all the questions as far as intro into duck hunting. And that's two episodes now, and I know we could probably go 2 more deep diving into each of those subjects. But I really just wanted to get just kind of start it off and kind of just break the ice on it and get people acclimated to it, and just introduce people, man, because I know whenever I really got introduced in it with you, I mean it's a lot, and it's really fun. So I would just tell people, man, just go sling out a few decoys, throw out a few calls, and just go have fun. And I'll tell you this about duck hunting too, that maybe we can touch on here for a minute. One of the best parts about it that I think, like me, I love turkey hunting, but turkey hunting doesn't have this. The world of just being in a blind with a bunch of your buddies. I mean, that's so fun, man. You guys, whatever, everyone can just get in there, chat it up, hang out. If you're bougie, you got a little stove in there or something. Get some breakfast going. Drink your coffee or your chocolate milk. Whatever your drink of choice is, and
Yeah.
And man, I think that's one of the coolest parts is just being able to chat it up just like this, and then hear some ducks or see some ducks and kind of get serious for a minute, and then right back to just having a good time. So, uh, I will say that duck hunting, man, is one of the coolest things to get into.
No, man, that's it. You hit the nail on the head with that one. That's one of the best parts of it is being able to hang out with your buddies. It's more about the fellowship of brothers that are like-minded, loving Jesus, spending time in God's creation. That, I mean, man, it just makes it all that much better when you can stand there with Jesus in his creation with the buddies he put in your life. There's nothing greater than that, man. It don't matter if you kill a duck or not. That's at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
That's right. Well, I think that's a good way to end it right there, man. So hopefully y'all learned something from Ben here. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, everything Rooted Podcast and Rooted Television. We're on all the socials. We're on anywhere that you can find a podcast. So I appreciate y'all and have fun.
Redneck out. That was a good one. For all things Rooted Podcast and Rooted Television, and I mean hats, shirts, hoodies, and other merch, check out our friends at CH Lone Star Pro and the link that is in our description.